Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Championship Leadership Podcast. And I'm excited today. We got Taylor White from, we just rehearsed this, but I'm probably going to screw it up, but Raleigh, North Carolina. I want to say
Raleigh. The A
Raleigh.
is
It
long.
is Raleigh. It's
Yeah, it's
Raleigh.
Raleigh.
It's
It's
Raleigh. I
Raleigh.
messed it up. Damn it. All right. That's all right. But yeah, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate your time. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I would like to ask this first question first, and then we'll kind of get into you and your story and what you're up to. But the name of the podcast is Championship Leadership. So what comes to mind for you? What does championship leadership mean to you when you hear that?
It's funny. I kind of knew you were going to ask that
You
question.
knew it.
But I didn't prepare an answer. So, yeah, I think it's interesting coming into what leadership actually feels like embodied over time, like as I've gotten older and more confident and comfortable with who I am. And I always thought about like who do I look to as a leader and what qualities do they have? And it's like, they are grounded and centered in themselves and exude warmth and strength, and they're somebody that you want to follow because you feel safe following them. So it's not like, leadership isn't how can I assert my dominance and get my way in this situation and tell people what to do. It's how can I be what will attract people to want to um, be a part of what I'm creating.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely. And I think, I definitely think leadership, and I'm sure it'll always continue to evolve just like everything else, but it's definitely evolved to that, right? I think earlier on in our lives, it was probably a little bit more so of the assertive, just do as I say and don't
mm-hmm.
and let's go type attitude. And sometimes that's necessary depending on the situation. But more so, I think, yeah, definitely fits your definition, which I love because I ask this question every time and I always get a different answer. So it's interesting to me to see all the different ways we slice up championship leadership. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to know when to be assertive and when to just be,
yeah,
the pillar. I think, as children, there's people who like there are people who are natural leaders and you all hear it's like, oh, you're a natural leader because people just gravitate towards you, but it's not because you're bossy necessarily.
mm-hmm.
Like there are people who inhabit leadership in that manner and just become kind of, bullies and that kind of thing. And that's
Yeah,
that's one way to do it, but I don't think it's generally the best way to do it.
right. Yeah,
Because you
totally.
really want to be somebody that people feel good about following.
Yeah, like you say, just people kind of gravitate towards you because of
Exactly.
they just, we're all reading and judging people all the time, and you just know, like you said, you know good
Mm-hmm.
people when you see them. You
Exactly.
know great leaders when you see them, and a lot of times maybe you can't even exactly put a finger on exactly what it is or why that is, but you just know it when you see it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, well, let's hear more about you. You're an artist. Is that the correct term?
That is a correct term in a nutshell.
Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I read your bio and I'm like, who the hell wrote this? Like, it's definitely an artist. Number one. Number two, I'm like, there's some big words in there, and I'm just trying to figure out what it all means. But
Oh, it's
but
word. Yeah, I enjoy
is
wordsmithing,
that
I
you
guess
as
is the
well?
word. Yeah.
Like, well done. First of all, I'm like, yeah, definitely multi-talented. So, um,
Thank you.
please break that down for someone that's not familiar with your line of work, and just reading. I'm like, man, you can just like anything, I suppose. You can. There's so many different ways you can go with it, right? So yeah, tell us a little bit more about you and maybe your backstory, how far you want to go back, and what's kind of led you to the path that you are today, and what is it that you're up to today?
Great. Well, yeah, in five minutes or less. So you want me to basically break down what I mean when I say I'm an artist?
Yeah, no,
Or
um, yeah. I mean, explain what you do as an
sure.
artist, I guess.
Okay, so well, I am a visual artist, painter, and muralist primarily. That's how I make my living. I have always been uh had like a talent for drawing and painting, any kind of draftsmanship from, to the age of 2 until, the age of 36.
Yeah.
So, it's been one of those things. It's been kind of I've been kind of closely identified with it since birth, because it was one of those things that when, enough people tell you you're an artist and you're like, okay, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
And then the, predominant mission of life was, how can I put my gifts to the highest and best use? So, I found myself trying out commercial illustration, that kind of thing. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design thinking, if I was going to be an artist for a living, I better not be a starving artist. So
Yeah.
I went the creative careers route, found myself in illustration. That worked out for a couple of years. I didn't really feel fulfilled doing that, and ended up finding myself back in painting in a different way. And so I think that route and that path actually got me to a point where I could actually make a living painting commercially rather than kind of painting academically.
Mm-hmm.
So I came up kind of through the illustration to street art to contemporary muralism and fine art.
Okay.
So I guess I could probably go into that a little more.
Yeah. Well, right now you have a show, right?
Yeah. So
Talk to us about what that is and what that looks like.
I am putting together a solo exhibition of my fine art, which will be the first time that I exhibit my fine art in Raleigh. I've done solo exhibitions around. I've done a few in Australia, in Atlanta, and a couple of other places. But here is like I'm from here, and I've moved back 7 years ago. In that 7 years, I've been so busy doing murals and haven't taken the time to share my work with the community. So it was important to me to take the opportunity as it came up this year to finally do that. I've been talking about it for a couple of years, and a sort of convalescence of different circumstances led me to choose the moment to do it. Yeah. So I rented a storefront downtown. I produced all the work, in the past year, but primarily the bulk of the work has been produced in the last 6 months. And it was one of those like, okay, I'm throwing my hat over the fence first. I rented the space, so I better finish all these paintings, know.
Do you find that that's an important part for piece to some taking on something like that, like a show?
As in making the commitment and then
like, hey, yeah, like I'm going to go rent this space, because absolutely. A lot of people will say they want to do this or they want to do that, and it's always out into the future, and they're never taking steps. They don't put it in the line, and it never happens.
Exactly. And I've spent a lot of my life coming up with ideas and then not fulfilling on any of them because I wasn't willing to take the risk and to take the step. And I found at a certain point, I found that the best way for me to get it done was to put the pressure on myself by making a commitment to something and then working backwards from there, because otherwise you just have the safety of your own ideas. Yeah. And you can just be like, well, I'll get to it someday, but I'm busy right now because this came up. And then you have like endless distractions that keep you from doing what you have set out to do. Right. So it's like, taking the risk of, putting down the deposit on the space and announcing it to the whole world that you're going to do this. It's like, okay, well, I guess I've got to find a way to get this done.
Better come through.
And it's interesting, miracles can happen. Like I didn't think I was going to do this until about 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And then I just said yes. And then everything. And then you just light a fire under your butt and put everything. It's amazing how easy it is to get things done when you have a goal and a mission,
So important. That's pretty universal, right? And
absolutely.
So is the show live right now?
It opens on Friday, June 11th. And it will be open
nervous? Where you at?
Say that again.
Is it exciting, nervous? Like, what are your thoughts, feelings going into it?
All of the above. Like, I haven't really had the time to feel nervous because I have a to-do list as long as my arm. So I've just been like chipping away and doing everything. It feels good. What I've noticed is like, so I've a self-employed full-time artist, and I set my own schedule. And some days it's very hard to differentiate between like my on time and my off time. So I would reach the end of my workday and settle down and relax before bed, and I would always feel like there was more to do.
Hmm.
Like, could I be doing more?
Yeah.
But in the process of preparing for this show, I found myself at the end of every day feeling fulfilled, like I had accomplished a lot, and I felt like I could give myself a break. You
Hmm.
know, it's like I did
Yeah.
all of these things. And so it's interesting that although I have more to do, feeling like I set a goal and fulfilled it at the end of the day, like makes
Yeah.
it makes all the difference. Or I will try to bring that mindset into my life as I go forward, you
Right.
know.
Right.
Um,
How,
I think I digressed a little bit from the original point, which I can't remember what it was, but that's okay.
no, you're good. Perfect. So the show, what's involved in the show? What's the goal? Is there a financial outcome from this? I would imagine it's
I
more
mean,
than financial as well, but like, just like, I really don't know.
of
I've
course, the
heard of
goal, I mean, the goal is to sell work for
so
sure. You know,
okay.
I made a significant financial commitment to renting the space for 3 months and buying the beer and wine and things that I'm going to be giving people who
Yeah.
come, and like producing like spending a considerable time producing the work and all of that stuff. And, you know, and I spent money on advertising and marketing and all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
I
And how many
expect,
pieces
I
did
hope to
you,
I hope to at least break even on that,
of
if
course.
not profit from it.
Yeah,
And, you know,
absolutely.
the good thing about me producing the whole thing is, yes, it's a financial risk, but I also get 100% of the profits from the show, and I have full control, which is great. You know, like galleries are wonderful mechanisms, especially for artists who don't have the capital
Yeah.
or the willingness to put up the capital to do their own thing. Um, but they, you know, most of them take, you know, the artist only gets to keep half.
Yeah. You're
And
betting on yourself, obviously, and you
yeah,
know who you are. You know what you can do. It's not your first rodeo either. So
right. I think betting on yourself is a good way to put it. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, I feel like this is the right time and the right move.
yeah. So how many pieces go into a show like this for
Let's
you?
see. I think I have 22 paintings in the show. And then I'm doing a limited edition print as well. It's going to be available on opening night.
Okay.
And I plan on releasing one or two more prints during the course of the show's run.
Okay.
I haven't decided which ones, but
So do
I
I
will do that.
literally just show up to your show and I would just be like, hey, I want to buy this particular piece, or what's the
Yeah,
process?
you would be able to buy the piece on the night. You would have to leave the show. Leave the show would stay up for 2 months, so you'd be able to collect it at the end of the show.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and so, you know, you put down you pay it for it on the night or whatever, you get a bill of sale, and like then you get to pick it up in 2 months.
Got you. Um, so is there a theme to the show, to the work, or is it?
Yeah, I mean the show is this I called the show Pursuit of Happiness, and I, you know, have a kind of multitude of reasons for choosing the title. It kind of just came into my head and didn't leave
Hmm.
during the time that I spent you know, working on the show. And it really is let me think about this for a second. It's like, I think I, like the events of the past year especially have kind of put into the forefront kind of what our way of life has led us to, like what the way of being that our way of life has led us to be, like um in our I'm doing a crappy job of enumerating my point, but I hope you edit. um I mean, I think we live in a world now where we are kind of tempted into the softness of comfort of the modern world.
Yeah.
You know, we're, you know, we are as sort of spiritual beings always try to seek growth and long for growth and connection and all of that, and emotionally and mentally, especially with the pandemic happening, locking us down, shutting us away,
Yeah.
like making us feel fear.
Yeah.
There's only one, like the only goal of life is to survive
Right.
as long as possible,
Yeah.
and we have our internet and we have our entertainment, and then we have the problems that we create in our mind because
Mm-hmm.
we don't really have any real strife.
Yeah.
And so all of those ideas I was kind of swirling around,
Yeah.
and like, I want to point out the satiation of kind of nonsense information and entertainment and everything that we are, languishing in as
Mm-hmm.
people, and kind of point to the possible path of kind of discovering who we really are as human beings and what our purpose is on earth, and the fact that we are allowing ourselves to be ripped off by our distractions and not experiencing life as it should
Yeah.
be experienced.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a warning, but also like I keep it playful. I want to make sure that people know that I'm not like a doomsday
Yeah.
person, and I'm like, we're all gonna, this is all garbage and we suck and we're doing it wrong and everything. It's like, yeah, we are doing it wrong, but there's a path forward and there's a different way to think about it. And I hope that through like the joy and the experience of seeing the work and everything, like I can kind of get people to think about that kind of thing.
I love it. Is that a message that you also will communicate throughout the show with people?
Yeah, I'll have a statement that's quite a bit more eloquent than what I've just laid out for you.
Oh, that was great, though.
It's an out like
Yeah.
I've got an outline
Yeah.
that's basically those ideas, and I'll between in the next 48 hours I'll put that into paragraph form, and that'll be available at the show.
Yeah. Yeah. You bet.
So
Okay. Very cool.
um
Very interesting.
so yeah, it's like a statement. People artist statements are important. I think people need to feel like that you're communicating something of meaning to them and not just telling them to go look at this pretty thing because you made it.
Right. Right.
um so I want people to think about it. I want people to experience the joy of being out in the world and forget about this pandemic
Yeah.
that has, sucked everybody's energy up over the last 18 months.
Yeah.
But also think about what that time has done to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and it definitely feels like we're coming out of it finally. So
it does feel that way. Like I took my mask off as soon as they lifted the mandate, and I haven't looked back. I know people are like people have their own levels of comfort with regard
sure.
to it, but I'm just like, I've already forgotten that I ever had to wear one of those things, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
How is it? So I want to come back to something you just talked about, the energy that you put into it, to this, not just to the art, but it's as a business itself, right? I know from running events, what it takes, all the things, like you said, the laundry list of things that you have to do to just make this thing happen that people don't ever see. And then of course that's hopefully not all your life. Like you have a personal life too. So are you in a relationship, or like, how do you, and if you're not, being married, 3 kids, like, and running a business and running and doing all these things. Cause I'm in kind of that phase where I don't have a huge team to be able to just put things off to help me to get things done necessarily. So how do you, I guess, just balance all of that with also living your life?
I find it pretty, like I'm not married, don't have a family of my own yet. But I have a good network of friends. I have my parents are still around to help, and they're actually helping me hang the show right now.
Awesome.
I've got an assistant. I've got a lot of good friends who are willing to show up and be there, and I really appreciate that. I'm expecting a ton of people to come to the show. And I have a dog that is my ward, and my father helps take care of the dog, or has helped take care of the dog the last week while I've been
Kind of like having a kid.
Well, I have been, oh yeah, it's having a kid. I feel terrible for her because she just doesn't have the freedom here to be able to run around and do things. So he took her up to the mountains and she's just having the time of her life
Yep.
up there being free. So, I mean, that's, and it's been a huge load off my mind because I have been able to dedicate 100% of my time to this. So, and if I had children, um, I think that was probably, if I'm honest, that's one of the reasons for me to take this opportunity now, because like, if I don't do this now, there will come a time where I want to do it, but I'll have children, for
Yeah.
example, and I won't be able to do it.
Mhm.
Or at least I won't be able to do it in the same way. I don't want to get too sucked into the trap of like, I have to choose between my livelihood and my children, because I don't think that
Absolutely.
I think that's a little bit of a uh, false dichotomy, I guess. But it would be much more difficult to be able to divide that energy up and devote 100% of myself into this show as I've been doing for the
Yeah.
past few months. Um, so that's the answer to that
Yeah.
question. I think. I hope it
Oh,
was sufficient.
yeah, absolutely. Who are some of the who have been some championship leaders, some mentors, coaches, people in your life that um, have made a significant impact on you as an artist, as a person? And it's always less about who it is and more about like what is it about them? Like what are some of the characteristics that really have stood out, or what are some of the things that you've really taken from those that have impacted you personally, professionally? Um, by all means, share the name if you feel uh, comfortable doing that.
Sure. Let me try to presence myself to that a little bit more. I think that, speaking of all of the, the characteristics that are embodied by the people that you look up to, I spend a lot of my youth looking up to teachers that I found particularly inspiring or had the qualities of making me feel accepted in a way that the majority of my educators over my lifetime didn't,
Yeah.
through no necessary fault of their own. It's just like some people can handle it, some people can't,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah.
Um, so actually many of my high school teachers are planning on being at the show on Friday, which is my way of saying, oh shit, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm getting a phone call.
Are you good?
Could you bear with me for one moment?
Yeah.
My other assistant is trying to get into the gallery, and this is what multitasking is all about. Hey, hang on a second. Come on, where are you? Now I can't pull up the damn text message box. Here it is. Hang on. Apologize for the interruption.
Yeah, no worries. We'll get that edited out. Um,
So, you're talking about leaderships and mentors throughout my life and sort of the characteristics that I have found to be helpful. Um, so I think that I found myself feeling supported and accepted and mentored and guided the most during high school.
mhm.
I went to a small private school called St. Mary's in Raleigh, and it was the class size 60, like 60 people in my graduating class. So like our class sizes could be anywhere from 6 to 10 kids, but not like rarely any more than that. And I found like the educators that were a part of that environment were much more willing and able to give the attention that I needed.
Yeah.
Whereas, in the factory farming environment of public school, that just wasn't possible. I think, lots of people go into the public school education idealistically, like thinking you're going to help a bunch of people, but then you get mired in bureaucracy and 30 kids who don't want to be there. And like, you just can't. So, um, so I really felt loved and cared for and guided
Yeah.
appropriately by the teachers at St. Mary's, all of whom I've invited to the show.
Awesome.
Um,
That's great.
Many of whom are going to be there.
Yeah.
And then, beyond that, it's kind of the qualities that I talked about at the beginning, like the warmth and the stability and the having the ideas that I am attracted to and being willing to talk to me about those ideas. And, um, I've got, one of my closest friends who also I consider a mentor in a lot of ways, spiritually and mentally. His name is Helm Calfee. He will be there as well. Just, and I think like just being kind of like a guiding figure, and having lived the life, like I think there's lots of parallels in his life and mine, and how we relate to the world and everything, and to have that guidance from someone who's been through it and went through it before me, I find very helpful. So
Yeah.
um I don't know, like that's the gist of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What would be, you know, what's the vision for you? What do you want to do? I think championship leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs, artists have an incredible vision. Oftentimes one that's hard for others to see, right? Like it doesn't make sense to a lot of other people because um, the best of the best, just they can see things oftentimes and much differently than others that keep them, I don't know, at the top or at the lead of the pack, I guess you'd say. So what's the vision for you? And more importantly, maybe short term, next 5 years, like what's the impact that you would like to make through that vision that you have for yourself and for your art and your work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I consider myself still in kind of the beginning stages of my career in general, even though I've been in it for 10 years, and I'm feeling established. I felt like I'm established in the last 2 to 3 years. And at the same time, I feel like I've got, you know, there's still so much more to do. I would love to be able to get bigger clients. I'm starting to get more like high end corporate clients that will allow me to be able to take fewer mural projects per year and still be able to cover my, cost of living.
Yeah.
And then, dedicate myself to fine art and whatever other projects I feel like I should be doing. As an artist, there's room for me to dedicate myself to projects that don't have anything to do with art at all. Like I'm interested in environmental regeneration and that kind of thing, mostly on a local level. I want to, you know, I want to grow my own food and
Yeah.
impact the community, and, impact the community to, you know, different habits of consumption, you know,
Yeah.
and just whole health, like whole body health, individual health, and community health. I think that health starts with your neighborhood. It doesn't jump to the federal level first. Um, so that's a really important thing that I would like to dedicate myself to. I've been thinking I would love to I'm not ready to like go and live on a farm just yet, but that's in my future, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
for sure. I love the city. I love it.
Yeah.
Like I love Raleigh and I love how it's grown. And I think it's exciting that there's going to be so much more to it in the coming years. And like, I feel like, there's going to be a certain point where I want to pluck myself out of it,
Yeah. It's
and live in a natural setting a little more.
growing up in the middle of nowhere. Um, there's a lot to be said about being out in nature and with space, and just
Space.
it just does so many things to us that I don't think we really can again put that finger on, but it's just like feels like stress kind of melts away for me personally, definitely when I go back home, back up north as we call it. um, it's just like, I don't know, it's freeing, it's peaceful, it's less stressful, just more in tune with God's incredible creation that we have everywhere we go. So
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's
yeah,
just like it's one of those things that you can't see until you can see it,
yeah,
or you can't feel it until you can feel it. Because if you're like, we get used to the environment that we're in, and it's like, I never knew I needed glasses until I put them on and I could see everything, you know?
right, right,
So you get
absolutely.
out and you're like, oh, wow, actually, I can feel my connection to the plants.
Yep.
And then like, I feel actually vitality that I just don't feel when I'm living on top of a bunch of other people in an urban environment where I can't let my dog off the leash, and you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know where my food is coming from and all of that stuff. So um I think I think I would venture a guess that that could be a source of healing for a great many people, and a great many sort of social ills
Yeah.
would find themselves resolving naturally.
It's actually really interesting
Um,
because I just had that thought this morning on the drive before our show here because I was going to horse camp, right, for my daughter, and it's just farmland. It's like you can see land for as long as you can go, right? And I'm just like, and I'm thinking, with there's all these people, and they all congregate together in these urban areas, and there's more land than we know what to do with. Like, do people don't? I don't think some people really realize what's truly out there
for
for
sure. And I think people are so much nicer to each other when they don't see people all the time.
yeah, right, yeah, absolutely. It's very
So,
interesting.
and they're much more willing to help each other. I think people just have a false, I think people who live in urban environments have a false conception of the way people are in general, because people
Yeah,
are, you know, people don't have the space to be nice and polite to every single person.
yeah, it's just a faster pace, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Switch gears just a little bit. What's Have you ever heard of an author, Stephen Pressfield?
Oh, that name sounds familiar.
He's uh, he's written a few numerous books. One was called Gates of Fire. Bagger Vance is a movie that was made that he wrote. Many other books, but he's also wrote this book called The War of Art, which he originally wrote for artists, and it talks about resistance.
Mm.
And a lot of authors or artists would talk to him after he had some success, and I think would have this conversation around, like, how do you just do the thing that you're supposed to do, right? And for him it was to write every day, to be a professional, not an amateur. And for
Hmm.
you, I would imagine it would be to paint every day, like, as a professional, not as an amateur. But then there's this thing that we call resistance, right? And for whatever reason, it's these thoughts, these feelings, these emotions that we have that tell us that we don't want to, or whatever it might be, all the millions of reasons why. But it's an incredible book, and it's a pretty popular one, but it's very interesting, especially as an artist. You might want to check it out. But
Yeah,
I
I
had him on the
should.
podcast, and we were talking about that. So what, how do you face resistance in what you do from a day-to-day basis around your work? And uh, is it an issue for you? Is it something that you deal with and struggle with, or is it easy for
Resistance.
you just to get up and do your work every single day?
Well, I mean, if the question is, do I have resistance? Then yes, I do, absolutely, all the time. There's plenty of times where it's just like I'm tired, I'm distracted, I'm not feeling it. Like I don't want
Mhm.
to, I don't want to be hindered doing this. And a lot of times I'll go into the studio and I'll just sit there and I'll stare at the wall the whole time. Um,
Yeah,
and then feel badly about that. But
yeah.
um, sometimes when I don't have the pressure, like I will kind of throw my time away
Hmm.
and go do something else. Um, but when I'm accountable to the show, for
Yeah.
example, uh, I can't really do that. So I really have to figure out a way to make it work. I don't necessarily have a conscious formula that I use. I just like, okay, well, you're now your studio hours, you're in here.
Yeah.
You can sit and stare at the wall or not, but like you're in here,
Hmm. Yeah.
Like I'm not, watching TV or
Yeah. Yeah.
out with friends or whatever, I'm like,
Sure.
you got to go do your work. And there have been times during this like last 4 weeks, for example, where I'm like, I've really got a lot more to do than I think I'm capable of doing, and I'm still sitting here staring at the wall because I don't have the mental
Hmm.
space to do it. But I think I don't beat myself up. That's the one thing that's really been made all the difference. I don't bully myself into it
Hmm.
either.
Yeah.
I make sure that, like, okay, I get up at a reasonable time and I start, and I, um, do what I need to do. And then I take breaks, and then I make sure that I get the sleep that I need. Um, I need 9 hours of sleep. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like,
I'm
I
pretty
don't, and I
similar.
don't, and I don't like push, like, I don't push past that, because I'm like, even if I were to push past that, I would be, I would be borrowing from my future energy, and I
Hmm.
don't think I could pay it back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
So like I just make sure it's like, okay, if it's time, when it's time for bed, it's time for bed. And when your body is done, it's done. And then you can recharge and then get back to it in the morning.
Yeah.
And that actually has worked really well for me, to be able to sort of hold the space for myself to do what I need to do and take care of myself, so that I'm actually like in the
Hmm.
best frame of mind to be able to accomplish what I need to accomplish. And so
How
far
did,
it's worked out pretty well.
yeah. How
I
did,
I did get all the pieces done. So
yeah. Yeah. That's important. Probably number one, almost, I would say. Um, what about fitness? Like, for me, health, fitness, working out, physically performing is everything to me, right? It really
yeah.
does drive the rest of the areas of my life. When I'm feeling good, when I'm taking care of my body, when I'm competing or having something to train for, that just it lifts all the other areas of my life. You look from, we're on video right now. So if you're listening to this, and she looks like she's in shape and fit, is that an important piece to your life?
I appreciate that. And yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't always like, I always kind of used to put myself second, and then I would wonder why I wasn't getting anything done,
Hmm.
because I was busy being in a bad frame of mind, and like tired and not feeling well and that kind of thing. And now, I found that by putting my health and nutrition and wellness first, I thereby get all the things, like I am aligned and accomplish what I need to accomplish. Because I think the backwards thinking is, you can sleep when you're dead, is the old cliche.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
can, you just need to be work, 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 work. And then you like don't have time to make food for yourself. So you order out, and then or you just like eat whatever will fill your stomach and not think about the nutrition. And then, you drink, and then, uh, you know, um, and then you don't sleep well, and then you wake up, and then you're just in a cycle of just like, I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not feeling good. So I started exercising. I go for a walk at least, at the very least, every
yeah,
day.
yeah.
I train with a trainer twice a week. um and then I just do whatever else to keep my body moving. And as a muralist, that really kind of came to the forefront, because I'm using my body a lot, and I'm finding myself feeling like I'm in pain, and I'm in my
Yeah.
30s, and I'm like, okay, that's not good. So I need to make sure that I'm like making sure that my body is in a
Yeah,
good working order, and then it gets easier.
that's totally.
I'm like, okay, so if I'm really taking off now, and I'm smack in the middle of my 30s, I need at least another 10 years, if not 20,
Yep.
of being able to physically do murals.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so
Important.
yeah, health and nutrition
Important.
has really taken a front seat to everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do take care of myself. It's like I'm not above ordering Domino's every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I'm not
I think
above like
as you should.
playing,
Yeah.
like Mario Kart every
Right.
now and then with a group of friends or
You're
whatever.
not a
But
robot.
like,
Yeah.
I'm
That's
not a
good to hear.
robot, and I'm not a machine. I'm not David Goggins. I'm just like, I'm gonna just do what I know works,
Yeah.
and also live a life that I
I think
enjoy.
that's healthy.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And I'm definitely not team no sleep either. So yeah, it's important. And
Mm.
kind of that same 8 to 9. And I can do, we all can do with less, but, uh, my body definitely performs at its peak with, 8 to 9. So,
Hmm.
um, I know we're going a little over time. Do you get a few minutes? I got one more question I really want.
Yeah, a couple minutes, and I gotta get
All right.
back. I've got people waiting for me.
All right. Well, we can just wrap it up then. Um, we'll wrap it up with this. if there were one or two things that you could give to the listeners today, that if they were to go and implement today in their life to help them move it forward, what would that be?
Man, there's actually more than a few things that I would probably say, and it would be context dependent a little bit, but
Yeah.
the one thing I would say is like you can do it. Like you can do it, and
Mm-hmm.
but in order to do that, like you need to understand that you're responsible for everything that you do. And like once you can authentically and actually understand that you're 100% responsible for everything that happens to you, it makes life so much easier, because then you realize that like you have all the power
Yeah.
to make a change or do whatever. Like, yes, things befall people all the time,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that, if something terrible happens that it was your fault, but it means that you are responsible for how you respond and what you do next.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you have all the power to do whatever you need to do, and you can figure out a way to do it. It's possible. And the other thing is what we were just talking about is take care of yourself first.
Yeah. Right.
Like if it's literally like if you literally can't get out of bed and you're sitting you're being like, when is like I can't figure out when my next paycheck's coming in, and like my life's falling apart and stuff, like literally go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Like start so small,
Yeah.
and then you'll find yourself feeling a little bit happier by the day, and then you'll have more energy and more clarity to be able to do bigger and bigger things. So it's like the same thing when like if you start yoga, if you like have never done yoga before and you start yoga, they're not going to put you in these really complex positions and make you hold them forever. Like they're going to make you like bend over and hold it for 5 seconds, and then like we'll see how you can do with that. And then a little later, you'll find yourself slowly building strength, and then you can do more. So I think people they hold too high of expectations of themselves too soon,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So like if they can't do what they like, they have all this ridiculous standard and then they can't achieve it on day one. And so then they quit. And then they feel like, they're looking for someone else to blame. And so they blame, society or whatever, and then at the end of the day, society isn't changing and they're still sitting on their couch being pissed about it.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
I just want people to know that they have the power, but they just have to wield it.
Yeah. Very good. Appreciate that. And yeah, so true. Take care of yourself. And Jocko Willink would call it extreme ownership, like
Absolutely.
Responsibility and accountability for yourself. And if you really do take that into your life, it's powerful. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you being here today, and thank you for going overtime. I apologize for that.
Oh, no problem at all.
But
you gotta be accountable to all the other people that are over there helping me get the show together, for sure.
Respect your time, for sure. And good luck, all the best with the show. Excited to see how that goes for you. Maybe we could even have you on afterwards to see how it went. But
I'd love to come back and give you an update.
Incredible. How can we find out more about you and what you're up to and follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram at Taylurk, Taylurk. I have a Twitter account where I post more of my personal opinions. Consider yourself warned. But it's the same handle.
Yeah. Okay.
Taylurk, Taylurk. And then taylorwhite.art is my website where you can check out my portfolio.
We'll get all that linked up too. So I appreciate you so much for taking the time today. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it too.